I strongly believe that Ukraine will repel Russian forces. I strongly believe in unity among all Western allies, and I strongly believe that Ukraine and freedom will prevail in this war of democracy against tyranny.
I spoke to Arseniy Yatsenyuk, former Prime Minister of Ukraine, who gave me his reaction to the declarations from NATO today.
They reiterated the message that the Western world is to support Ukraine as long as it takes. May I add this phrase? As long as it takes for Ukraine to prevail in this war. And that's the reason why we need to get ammunition and armored vehicles and battle tanks on a fast track. It is important to realize for the entire world that Putin already gathered and reconstituted his military. He wants to restart his counteroffensive. And we are well aware that the time is of crucial essence. So it means that the Western world is to act decisively, boldly, and on a very fast track.
Because we are hearing suggestions that already supplies of vital ammunition on the front line are running low for Ukraine's troops.
Yeah, that's true. We are running low. And that's the reason why we expect that the delivery of ammunition and battle tanks will be as quick as possible. And Secretary Austin and General Milley, they were quite vocal, underlined that 54 countries already agreed to support Ukraine. But here is the thing, it's actually 50 years when Americans decided to support Israel in Yom Kippur War. And this was a very decisive and bold action on the side of the United States. And both Syria and Egypt at that time, they were close allies to Soviets. I won't say this is the similar conflict, but what is needed, we need to apply the same pattern to act boldly and decisively.
We've had the commitments from the UK, from other European nations, and indeed from the United States to send tanks. Have those tanks arrived yet?
Not yet. There are different, I would say, forecasts or timetables. We expect that the first squadron of these tanks is to arrive in 2 months. US-made Abrams tanks are expected to be delivered by the end of the year. And frankly speaking, here is the thing. What we are talking right now about, we are talking about few squadrons of tanks. And I do commend Brits, Americans, and even German government that decided to provide the green light for both for Germany and for those who have Leopard tanks in possession. It's around, if I'm not mistaken, 12 countries, EU member states and other countries, to deliver these tanks to Ukraine. But once again, the number of the tanks is around 100. It's not thousands. Let me compare with the number of Russian tanks. So the industry, I mean the military industry of the entire Western world and of the NATO has to be mobilized in order to secure both delivery for Ukraine and in order to provide security for the NATO member states. So this is a wake-up call for the entire free world.
We heard Jens Stoltenberg saying that, in effect, a renewed offensive from Russian troops had already started. But then we had the US Defense Secretary talking about his expectation that it would restart within weeks. What is your assessment of what is happening there?
Frankly, it hasn't ended. It started in 2014. And this is the war. The war has its ups and downs. The war has its different battles. And we need to look at Russia as still a very big and powerful state, even despite the fact that Ukrainian military already partly demilitarized Russian military. But they preserved an aircraft capabilities. They have missiles. They have their military industry. They have a lot of stockpiles and ammunition. So whether to expect a new large-scale offensive, I suggest that we are in a never-ending both offensive and counter-offensive. It's difficult to gauge whether this is a big offensive or no, but no doubt that Putin is preparing a new kind of big counter-offensive.
Yeah, because there has been a growing expectation amongst the Western allies that there would be a really significant renewed push from Russian forces, perhaps to coincide with next week's anniversary of last year's invasion.
That's my take too. And NATO military intelligence already provided an information that Russia could launch an airstrikes and could use its aircraft capabilities to launch a new counteroffensive, as Russia already preserved around 80% of its aircraft. This is a huge number. So that's the reason why we need more anti-aircraft defense.
What about the aircraft, the fighter jets, which were very much the focus of President Zelensky's message to the UK when he delivered that very powerful speech in Parliament last week? What is your understanding of where the West is on this? We've got lots of positive signals, but no firm commitments yet, let alone any Western jets actually being sent to Ukraine.
My gut feeling is that the time will come when Ukraine is to receive fighter jets, no doubt. But as of now, we have immediate needs. So we need to cover all these immediate needs.
And do you think that Ukraine's forces will be able to withstand a really major offensive by Russian forces, given everything that you have said about how Russia has been rearming, rebuilding its forces?
I strongly believe that Ukraine will withstand. I strongly believe that Ukraine will repel Russian forces. I strongly believe in unity among all Western allies, and I strongly believe that Ukraine and freedom will prevail in this war of democracy against tyranny.
How concerned are you, though, that we are already hearing some voices in Europe suggesting that Ukraine should be trying harder to sue for peace? We heard Berlusconi talking about this. There have been some activists in Germany making these calls. Are you concerned that Western support for Ukraine could be fraying as the war drags on?
They have to draw the lessons from the history. I think that they do really know what appeasement policy leads to. This is the way how to actually make dictators stronger in this world. So whether these voices exist, yes, but they are in a very strong minority, because this war is more just about Ukraine. This war about the freedoms and liberties and the security of EU member states, NATO, and actually of the entire world.
Well, that was Arseniy Yatsenyuk, Ukraine's former prime minister, speaking to me just a little earlier.